Hello, so welcome to the Moving Teacher. My name is Brian, and today we're having an honorary guest from John. He's traveled around the world. He's taught for over 20 years. He has his CELTA, Delta, TEFL. He has quite literally, he is what you want as a person who has taught and has made it as a long-term career. So thank you for joining us, John. So tell us about yourself and what got you into teaching abroad.
Okay, Brant. Well, thanks for inviting me. Yes, my name is John Holst. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. I've been teaching in Korea mostly for the last 20 years. And how did I end up here? I did some tutoring and some coaching while I was living in Canada when I was young, and it was an experience that I enjoyed very much. So I took my first TEFL certificate while I was living in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and got myself my first job at a private academy here in South Korea. And that was a really nice job. I was there for 3.5 years, and that was my first experience here.
That's it. Um, so what made you choose Korea, not other countries?
Actually, at the time, which was a long time ago, it was really easy to get a visa to work in Korea. I was interested in working in either Korea or Japan, but the visa process for Japan was a lot lengthier and a lot more red tape was involved. So when I got a good offer for a job to come to Korea, I just snapped it up.
And then because I come from the US, I know Canada, I know every country is different. How was that process for someone from Canada that wants to teach abroad? I know US is a background check also, but I'm curious to know about how it is for Canadians.
Well, yes, today Canadian job searchers would also require the RCMP check, maybe the vulnerable sector check as well, depending on where you're working. But when I got my job 20, 20, 24 years ago, first time, they didn't require that at all. So actually, I just had to have my degree notarized and apostilled by the embassy, and my transcripts and a resume, and that was it.
So it was more simpler back then. Yes,
Yes, it was.
yeah, because I know now more people want to travel abroad into other countries. Things are it's a lot more paperwork than before. So while you were in Korea, or while you're in Korea, uh, what are some places that you've taught? Like any, have you gone to Seoul, Pyeongtaek, or what areas?
Well, for the most part, I've lived at the very southern end of the country near Busan. I live in a city called Changwon. I've spent most of my time here, although I did spend a little bit of time up in Chungcheong province, and I've taught in private schools, public schools at every level. I've run my own business multiple times. I've done tutoring, university teaching, online teaching. Seriously, I've done everything while I've been over here.
Which one would you prefer? Would you prefer more like online, face to face, and also do you prefer like young children, young adults, or adults?
Well, it's a personal preference, but I really enjoy working with older students. So I really enjoy middle school, high school, and university students mostly. But I've had a chance to work with kindergarten students and elementary school students, and even senior citizens. And everybody presents a different challenge, and they're all fun in their own way. But my preference is for older students.
And how are you able to teach older students? Because I know more with the younger students, they want games, a lot of activities, a lot of moving around. But with older students, how do you get them more? into learning another language?
Well, especially high school and university students, it's really important to try to get the students to interact with each other so that they have a lot more speaking time in their class. So trying to develop activities that will allow them to work with each other more and try to reduce your teacher talk time. That's really important with working with university students and high school students because the students really need the opportunity to practice their productive skills.
Yes, no, that's true because I think one concept people, and this is for anyone that wants to teach. So when you're teaching younger children, yeah, you're gonna have to find creative games, activities, probably put like music, things that. But when they're more older, you want to make sure that they're comprehending because once they graduate, they can use it more in real life skills for their work, travel, and etc. When teaching at the high school level and the kindergarten, like which level in Korea are students shown more English at a younger age or more at the older stage? Because I know my experience in Korea, I saw some students know a lot more at the younger age and it helped them out later on. But I do know when I was in China, students would learn more towards when they were in high school or higher education, which might be a little too. It's I mean they're getting help, but it's a little too late because they're building up this foundation um, instantly.
Well, here in Korea, they start studying English in public school right from elementary school. And it depends where you are in the country, but it could start anywhere from, you know, kindergarten right up through. But usually in elementary schools in Korea, they start in like fourth grade or fifth grade, and they get their exposure to, their foreign teacher, along with the Korean teacher who guides them with their class as well. But you were mentioning about the different levels of the students, and the issue here in Korea is that a lot of students take private classes at academies, and so when you're in a public school, you should expect to experience a wide variety of levels, and it's impossible to match them up properly because the level is so great, the gap. And like I say, that's due to the private education market here in Korea, and it's extensive.
And I guess you get off a little bit from this. Well, when you did went to Korea, what was there any culture shock? Was there anything where you're like, wow, I'm gonna have to like adjust, like learn? And are there some things maybe you teach your students maybe about Canadian cultures and then this, or they're like, okay, this is how the world is in Canada or maybe in another country?
Well, personally, when I arrived in Korea, uh, for me, I think everyone experienced a certain level of culture shock, but it depends on your background and how willing you are to accept, variance in your surroundings. So for me, it was really nice. I had a good experience my first time, and it made me, just want to stay here and continue living and teaching in Korea. But I've had some other people who didn't last 1 year while they were here because they were homesick and they had certain expectations about what life was like here, and it just didn't live up to what they had in mind. So they end up leaving right away. But for me, it wasn't such an issue. And regarding what you mentioned about teaching culture, they say you can't learn a second language without learning something about the culture. And I really think that's true because when you talk about American culture or Canadian culture, or even, Australia or New Zealand or some other places where native teachers come to Korea, the culture is different and the students are interested in learning. Why do people have the expressions they have and why do they use these, quirky expressions? And so you end up having a discussion about the differences in culture. And it's interesting for the students, and it does help them learn the language and culture. So it's fun.
Yeah, no, and that's one thing because I know when I was in China, everyone wants to know about US. I always had to teach them about different things. And this is something good for any teachers, is show them about like you can show them about famous countries like Canada, UK, US, etc., but also get them to know about countries that they might not know. Uh, I guess uh, with this, because I'm learning a lot of, no, I'm learning, getting a lot of great information from you. Uh, and then I guess you would you have any tips or advice for anyone that wants to teach in Korea?
Uh, yes, and I get a lot of people from home asking me because I've got friends who have friends who have friends who know that I've been over here forever. And so people are asking me frequently about, what they could expect, or do you think it would be good for them? Or and I try to tell people, just keep an open mind, be prepared to accept that things are just not the same as at home, and also accept that people don't act the way that maybe they do in their country. So if you keep an open mind and are willing to tolerate, a difference from your culture, you're going to have a good time, I think, because Korean people are generally really kind to foreigners living here. And, you're here to teach them. You have something that they want, they're interested in. So the interaction is really good for the most part. And so expect differences, embrace those differences, and you'll have a good time, I think.
Yes, no, that's true. Because that as you mentioned, it's also present. It's open minded. They're gonna enjoy. And they're gonna embrace a lot of the country they're in. And I only just have like two final questions. I know you do because I know there. I know you do have a TEFL. I know you do have a CELTA. TEFL's more known. I know CELTA. It's getting there. But could you explain what the difference between a TEFL and CELTA is, and which one should a person get both, or maybe one of them?
Honestly, it really depends on what your goal is for working in Korea or overseas in general. So, you know, I got my master's degree in education with a focus on TESOL because a long time ago, it was always my goal to work at a Korean university. So I knew that was going to be an important qualification for me. So my wife and I went home and studied for, 18 months and got our master's. And we took our CELTA while we were there. That was another, full month, full time, but really worthwhile. So if it's your goal to just come to Korea for a year or two and work in public school or private academy, uh, it's not necessary to have a CELTA or master's degree. However, what often happens is people end up here and they really like the environment, they like the work, and they want to stay. And so everyone's interested in, the cream of the crop jobs, which are university positions. And for that, you really do have to have a master's degree with a focus in linguistics, TEFL, or something related English. And that's really a minimum requirement. CELTA helps with that a lot, but you won't get a job just with CELTA. So CELTA is really useful if you want to work here in Asia, but you won't get a job just because of CELTA, but it does give you a big edge over people who don't have it.
No, no, that's great because you do give a lot of great information. Yeah, because I know that's one thing that people might not know, and hopefully they understand what the CELTA is. My final question: is there any?
Can I interject there?
Yes.
CELTA is, it's a certificate. It's not a diploma. It's not a degree. but it is the most recognized certificate in the world, along with the Trinity TESOL. It's the one certificate that employers ask for by name. So, I mean, you can do that in 1 month full time, or you can stretch it out over 3 months part time. But if you're thinking about taking a serious certificate course, it's the best one to take, I think.
No, thank you for all the great information. And then my last question is, what is one thing you're grateful for teaching, and how has it helped you out, whether in the teaching life or personal life?
Well, I'm really grateful for the position I got into when I first arrived in Korea because, I was in a really supportive environment. I was in a kind of a big chain, and the owners of my school were really kind and welcoming and supporting. And we had a really big staff of Korean teachers. And, they were all very eager to take me here and take me there and, take me to these restaurants and these places and experience, the beauty of Korea and some of the different cuisines and cultural places here in Korea. And so I had a really good time. But so I'm really grateful that I had such a good start because that's what really made me want to stay in Korea. And I've lived here, for over 20 years. And, I have no plans on moving back to Canada anytime soon. So,
Yes, no, and no, Korea is one of the best places I think to live. Everything,
I honestly think so.
yeah, because they have great transportation, the healthcare. Um, there's stores everywhere. Even when you go in the middle of nowhere, you're always gonna find your Baskin Robbins. You'll find your Starbucks. These things maybe you're like, oh, I won't find it because in Korea there's always a Baskin Robbins and a Lotteria everywhere. Uh,
Yeah. So when I first came here, there weren't a lot of Western stores or a lot of Western food. But these days, people arriving in Korea can expect to find a lot of their favorite foods from home. And you don't have to feel so homesick about, missing cooking. You're going to enjoy the food, I think. And you can find a lot of the things from home. So it's really good.
well, definitely, because I know in Emar there's a lot of foreign stuff. There's Costco's, there's some foreign super, but there's a lot. Everything is really accessible in Korea. Would you have anything you want to mention or anything maybe might have left out?
Well, I just want to mention to anyone interested in teaching overseas, specifically Korea, that's where I've had my experience. Uh, like I say, if you want to come to Korea, just keep an open mind and you're going to have a really good time because Korean people are really kind. It's a small country, but beautiful. It's really easy to get around, make lots of friends while you're here, and enjoy the experience. And you never know, you may end up staying longer than a year.
As that concludes our interview. Thank you, John, for everything, for your great insight, information about your life, Korea, TEFL, CELTA, teaching, and how it, it becomes a passion and motivation. And it can, and teaching English can be a long-term career. Thank you so much.
Thanks
And
for having me.
no, you're welcome. And for the viewers, follow us on The Moving Teacher on Facebook or on YouTube.